Welcome you to the regular June meeting of the Lake County Board of Commissioners. I'd like to begin the meeting by asking Commissioner Thomas if he would lead us in the invocation, Mr. Davis if he would lead us in the pledge of allegiance.
Father God in heaven, we thank you, big God Almighty, having all power in your hand. Father, we ask you to bless this meeting, and everything will be pleasing in your sight, decent and in order. Father, we ask you to bless those that are here, bless those that wish to be here. We ask you to bless all our county, Wayne County, and enlarge our territory, and continue to bless us as we expand. Father, we ask you to bless those that are in the county that are in need in every area of their life. We ask you to bless the commission board and everyone who's working. We thank you. We give you all the mercy and the grace. Thank you for those who are fighting in harm's way. We can actually have this very meeting. We pray in the Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to call for a motion for the adoption of the agenda. Qualifications for community rating. I don't have anything.
Commissioner Hires,
Yes.
Commissioner Clary,
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Keith.
Trust you all had a chance to look at the minutes from the May meeting. Instructions on that.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we adopt minutes as they are.
There was one change that I saw in stated, new ordinance states that you have to pave the roads in the subdivision after 50% of sales. I don't think that's right. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I think you have to pave it, and then after 50% of the sales, the county could possibly take over that road.
That's correct.
Okay, so anyway, if you just after subdivision, put and take out the whole. Other than that, I'm good with it.
Motion to table this modification. Continue the motion with modification.
Yeah, I will second that modification.
All right, motion is second. Second into the modification stated by Commissioner Clary. Discussion.
Yes, sir.
Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Clary,
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Keith, Commissioner Hires.
Yes. On presentations and announcements tonight, we have with us, Mr. Donnie Ray, our emergency management director. Donnie Ray, would you want to give us a little bit of your time, please, on Hurricane Katrina?
What this is the hurricane plan. Y'all have a copy of it. We have to update this every so often. Last time it was done in 2017. So we updated it. It was originated in 2006. But there's nothing new. We just update a little bit. If you want to try to read through some of the updates real quick, I'll tell you where the changes are. First of all, the objective of this plan is to mitigate the effectiveness of storms through planning and preparedness, alert local officials and general public in a timely, effective manner, protect and save lives, coordinate response activities of local officials, provide for an orderly evacuation of threat areas, prevent or minimize damage to property, coordinate activities of coastal counties and other involved in hurricane response, and coordinate return of evacuees to their homes and provide rapid recovery to restricted areas. That's the purpose of this plan. One of the changes is, we're a coastal county, so therefore we're an evacuee county. We're not one that's supposed to stay here. We get asked all the time about shelters, cases of hurricanes, and the state or county state of emergency. We have to leave. We're evacuating county. Therefore, Red Cross will not come set up shelters here in a state of emergency. Now, they will, if it's not a state emergency, we have like, just need shelter set up, but for hurricane evacuation, Red Cross will not come and set up shelter until we're going to evacuate if we have to. That makes sense, because we're Cook County. That's one of the questions we get a lot. That changed also the, on page number 6, you'll see the Ocon. There has just been 2 added to that. We used to have 3. Ocon 5, we go with that when Ocon 5 is normal conditions. That's just preparedness page. That goes from June the 1st to November the 30th, hurricane season. Ocon 4, that's potential threat cited, which is monitor phase, that's 120 to 72 hours before potential landfall. And then number 3, Ocon is take action to save life and property. That's the watch and warning phase, that's 72 to 48 hours. And to add something right there, 72 hours, that's when we have to let the state know what we will do. We're going to evacuate what we need and all that. The one is going to come out for 48 hours. So you have to make a decision, once it's been in the distance, but we have to make a decision before we actually have a warning issue. Ocon 2, that's an evacuation phase, that's 24 to 48 hours before potential landfall. And the estimated time for Wayne County, they still got it set on 24 hours as part of getting everybody evacuated. 19 to 24 hours. And then, the reentry phase, we're changing that some. One of the changes from GEMA is now it is all done through GEMA. We do not have to do, remember, we used to have a passage we hand out to people and they put it in their cars and something goes they needed to if they was an essential worker. Now you do not. Now you have to go to GEMA's website, you go to https:/GEMA Georgia Gov reentry permit and apply online. Each company has to. That's something we're going to be pushing in the next week or 2. We're going to reach out to all the big companies that have to have essential workers coming back in, and we're going to work with them. Now, as far as actually law enforcement, if they're out of town, they in the marked truck before they can get back in with their ID and their marked truck. This is for like, let's say, bringing here, need some people come back in to check on their chemicals and all. This is for them. But we'll be reaching out to them a lot this week on the and then in the back of the book is just, you'll see where it says activate. We got a checklist for each, even the government agencies, 911, fire department, sheriff's office, they all have their little check marks as these outcomes when they start, what they're going to start preparing for.
Commissioners, I would like to commend, Mr. Ray and the preparedness. There's several emergency plans that he and him and his staff have worked very diligently to prepare us for. And it is important. In an emergency, you can't make up plans. You got to be prepared for it ahead of time. And he's well thought of in this region as far as emergency management, and I think he's done a great job in preparing us and giving us an opportunity. We're going to roll it out to different departments and making sure that they understand what their roles and responsibilities are before they don't need to go look at a name and find out that there's
And I'm going to present it to all the cities and also to the Board of Education. We have a copy of it.
Dr. I appreciate it. Now, I have to say that in the past 6 years, experience in the work you do when you have to open the EOC, that alone, the work you do ahead of time is phenomenal. People don't realize what you do to keep people as Scott said, people ready to evacuate. I think one of the toughest decisions. And it's all based on yours and the sheriff's suggestions is called for mandatory evacuation.
Okay, you was in there.
That's your chair. It's the toughest, one of the toughest decisions to make because of the nursing homes that are affecting their own people. It's one of those things you have to do, but it's you have to make based on what you know before you. Again, I've seen it firsthand, probably 8 times now with hurricane threats. And what y'all do to be prepared. I wish people stand up and see what you do because it's get us where we are.
Another thing, Sharon, you can put your copper reach. That's actually the sign-in sheet right there. If you want to scan it to your phone, we're going to start carrying that around town and putting it out different places. She had that made up. You go to your phone and scan it, and it'll give you the local weather and alert. Wayne County, any alerts. We got this last week, all the storm came through. almost probably about 20 times with our route alert. And Commissioner Thomas was asking about the weather station. We do have one. It's called Davis Radio, and you can download that on your app and look in sections on top of this building. And you get rain, wind, and all as it's happening.
Great, great.
So
Thank you
Davis,
so much.
yeah.
I think y'all done the text and the updates, you and Sharon both, all that y'all do to try to keep us updated.
Yeah.
We as commissioners have a lot of people that look to us for information, especially in times of need. And, you know, we hope for the best, but you have to be prepared for the worst. And I appreciate y'all giving us that information, so when they call us, we can hopefully take some of the load off of y'all, by answering some of the questions.
Appreciate that. Thank you, good, appreciate it, keep up the good work.
Thank you.
We approved everything.
No, it was some stuff. This week. The next item on the agenda is citizens concerned, we have no on the agenda, no public meetings, no consent agenda, no old business. New business, consider approving a tentative agreement to accept River Hills Utility District May 7th, 2022, until we got some clarifications on some ordinance issues. As I understand it, this subdivision sort of fell under a gray area date-wise. Mr. Boozer, have you had a chance to think any more, give a clarification on where it fell under qualifying and not qualifying?
So, I kind of got a history lesson from Mr. Hilton, so correct me if I say anything wrong. I think at the time, when we went back and looked at it, I think at the time, the subdivision ordinance that the county had in place basically just had a line in there that the subdivision must be paid. Since that time, and not too long after this subdivision was created, after like 2 or 3 years after that time, our subdivision was updated, just like what we talked about, where after 3/4 of the lots were sold, then after it was made, that subdivision could apply to have the county maintain it. We've had some similar to this where, for whatever reason, the construction or during, after, sometime during the phase of this subdivision being developed, or not this particular subdivision, but the subdivisions being, other subdivisions being developed, that the bank foreclosed on it, they were unable to complete the paving part of it. After talking to Mr. Hilton, I think there's only, and I think he's went out there and looked at it, if I'm not mistaken, and I think that they've kind of been able to see that it cost the county only about $20,000 or so to get the road in a condition that the county could maintain it. So that's what they're kind of requesting, instead of paving it, that basically it just takes an exception to the ordinance and allow him to pay the county $20,000 for the agreement, and for them to go out there and fix it and maintain it so that it's up to their standards. Perfect.
So,
That particular road is at $20,000 just where it's maintainable as a dirt road.
and that's what I want to clarify, is if we vote to accept the subdivision, we are voting to accept it to maintain. We're not voting to accept it to pay. However, you qualify to get on the payment list, it's not. Push it up a bit, put it on the list, everything else. It's simply for the county to be able to not incur cost to get it gradable and drainable and still not punish and beat up our emergency equipment, most equipment, school buses and stuff like that. So with that, I'm gonna break back off the table and make a motion that we accept Druid Hill subdivision with the fee to the owner of $20,000 to be passed on to the county.
No, second.
Motion, second, discussion.
So you said it came in after the ordinance was passed, that it had to be paid?
No, actually, I think there was an ordinance that was, from what we can tell, at the time this subdivision was created, the ordinance did say that it had to be paid. But it was just, it was kind of a blur in there, it just had to be paid. When the new ordinance came about, that's when the criteria was that it had to be paid after 3/4 of the lots were sold, then the county, they approved that the county maintained the road. But there was language in there that it had to be paid prior to the county.
Just didn't have specs on it, and this road has never been paved, even though it was, I'm just trying to get, I want to avoid a lawsuit or anything like that, because if we're taking on a road that was not, that didn't follow procedures, would we be in line for a lawsuit? If we're accepting this and we're not accepting others, because from what you're telling me, I'm just trying to get it straight, that when this subdivision was built, it was supposed to be paved, correct?
That's correct. I don't think you set yourself up for a lawsuit. From my understanding that this, and not since I've been here, but from my understanding, this has been done with other subdivisions very similar to this. Maybe Mr. Elton can elaborate on which one specifically
Let me interrupt
that
you.
had been paid.
Let me interrupt on that one. It's been done with other subdivisions where they had some kind of base of either prior paving or some form of work done to it, so it wasn't costly for the county to take over. Hence, the $20,000 fee.
That he, the owner would be,
Yeah,
the owner or developer of the subdivision would be,
To bring it equal to the other subdivisions we have taken over, cost-wise, for the county to take over and maintain. So it is an exception to the ordinance.
and that's why it's coming before y'all as well. Because it would be that.
It's a real gray, it's an exception to the ordinance somewhat, it's a gray area.
So that's like Best Road, do you remember that one? What Best paved, but it just
It
was
was
graded.
paid, but it didn't meet the standards to be rolled on this county road. Part of the requirement to bring it on this county road after it's 50% built.
Right.
After it, you get 50% built on, the road still has to be serviceable in order to take it on. And in the case of Best Loops and Patriot Court, Liberty Court, those were not in fully accepted condition, but because of the hazards on their yard, they had to.
Yeah, there was hazard. That road is further down, and I'm sure it's in poor condition. And for us to repair it and make sure that emergency vehicles can get down there, that, you know, people can get down there with things turned down. There was no body to go back to. So, that road is gonna have to be, ground up and repaved again and fixed right. But we patched it enough to make sure it's dry.
Right, well, and that's what I'm saying about this one.
Yeah, that didn't pay.
That's exactly right, and it should have been paid. And I don't know. I don't feel like we need to approve this. I hate it, but everybody has to follow the rules. And if we're not following the rules and we accept one, and we require another subdivision at the same time to pave their road, then I think we're opening ourselves up for a lawsuit by accepting this.
Not accepting.
But we're gonna maintain it.
It's my understanding is, you know, and we've done in the past, we accept roads, to maintain them, and push, by them doing it, $20,000, we get the road up and maintain it. We're not accepting to pay it, it will go on just like all the other roads, and whenever that time comes.
Yeah, but those are normally dirt roads that we accept. These are not roads that are in a subdivision that had certain stipulations.
When it was developed.
Yes, while it's being developed.
And I don't think you necessarily set yourself up for a lawsuit, obviously, you know, it's child's discretion with the county. That's what y'all will be looking on, whether the county accepts to maintain the road or not, based on this, them doing the modifications. But again, I completely understand, you know, if you do for one, you might have to do for another one in a similar situation. But this one, I will say, and Mr. Hill, correct me if I'm wrong with this one, it's one of the few that fall into this kind of, I would say, very similar scenario where something happened and built, you know, maybe the tail end of the construction or development of the subdivision. This is one where the owners or the developers actually willing to pay money to get it up to a certain level. So that's kind of the distinction here. as opposed to other ones that may just be coming before you ask them to inspect it. But you're absolutely right.
Right, any more discussion?
So he's paying us.
Yeah, he is, the owner is offering $20,000 fee to the county, based on county request to take on maintenance.
Just a one-time fee, not from here on after, we will have to take the cost of it.
And you gotta consider this too, which the cost we incur with the feeding our county vehicles, emergency vehicles, through Russell, as well as a threat that was for the postal service to put the new mail out there, nothing to be seen there. You know, it's, then you have a fucking thing that's there.
Well, and I understand that, I mean, we don't want them going down roads that are that bad, but I don't think it's the county's responsibility. I think it should have been done before, because, you know, when they sell those lots and things like that, they understand ahead of time. That's why the ordinance was passed, so they know that if they're gonna have to pave that road, then they need to put that into the cost of selling them the lots. So the county taxpayers don't have to incur that bill. What is it, about $10,000 a mile to grade roads per year?
I don't have a number off the top of my head.
I know that's what we figured on.
That's probably.
I know we figured that on Power Line Road when we were discussing that.
All right, and I'm gonna say that I think you, in a situation like this, you have to consider each situation, you know, on one-on-one basis. Given that, any more discussion, motion to second. Madam Clerk, call roll.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Key?
Yes.
Commissioner Hires?
Yes.
Commissioner Perry?
No,
All right, let's go on. Item D, under new business, is consider approving 2022 levy price increase.
As Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I'm thinking about, you know, with the escalating cost of fuel and oil and all the other materials in there, the contractor to come back and, you know, we could have, and asked for price increases, and Mr. Schuman will discuss more detail about what. But we made the consideration to reduce the scope of what we had on the list, or ask for a little bit more. His money will come out of the T-Splosh money we have, and, you know, the TIA money, the discretionary aspect of it, and we have that, and we ought to be, you know, we didn't feel like we needed to reduce the scope before becoming FPL. So our recommendation is to increase the cost and keep scope the same. Mr. Schuman, you want to explain a little more detail about?
Our contract documents reference GDOT's documents. In fact, they are considered a part of our documents. GDOT has a indexing section for items just like this. When there's a dramatic escalation in cost, particularly materials, it can be concrete, rock, or in this case, the major item being liquid asphalt. Liquid asphalt from January to May is on up over $200 a ton. And that impacts the three major cost items of the contract, which is the leveling and the two different surfacing, there's 135 pound and 165 pound. But at any rate, calculations based on those items in the contract, and taking into consideration the increased cost, comes up to a request for an increase of $81,407.08. That's what we're asking for approval on that. As the administrator said, either way, we either give the extra money or reduce the scope of the work. We prefer, obviously, we don't want to go back, we'd like to keep the scope of work the same.
Well, we say all of us that are in business will be affected by this, and we're having the same thing with restoration. So I certainly see this. Certainly see this problem. And if we would program cancel this contract or reduce the amount, we would be more than Chris is good.
Do we have a completion date confirmed for them? Because I know the way inflation's going, my goodness, since January to now, do we have a completion date ironed out for them so that we don't get this and it's not finished until December, and then we have another inflation rate, or do
We do have a date, there's an extended date for the new contract. One of the issues that happened was the contractors were not able to get stone. And so therefore they were not able to, mix their asphalt. And we're beyond that right now. It's still a problem, but not like it was. So they're working like heavy right now. I think they've already done several miles of this contract. The asphalt part of it is moving along. Part of this contract also included a lot of culvert work, and we're in the process of looking at that now. They have not asked for an escalation on that. That's one that we would like to probably recommend to you guys that we might do some scope on. But anyhow, we do have a number of locations on the roads in this contract where there's a couple that need to be replaced, possibly even line.
To answer your question, Commissioner, there is a deadline or date to finish and start on this project on the level, and it feels that, shoot, that has gone because of delays in getting material, but it will be completed by the end of the year. And so all this stuff over here is within this calendar year.
I make a motion that we accept the extra cost report. Any more discussion?
So this is for the 81,407?
Yes, sir. Go back and do this. Yes. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Key? Yes. Commissioner Hires?
Yes.
Commissioner McCreary?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Item C, consider approving amending fiscal year 2022 general fund budget through ARP for 2 power pro ambulance costs for the truck for the maintenance department. Jeff?
Mr. Richard, and Mr. Martin. Anyway, this is, as part of the ARP money in there, Richard, Mr. Johnson has identified, 2 cots that needed for ambulances. The ones we currently have are dated, and you'll find out more, but it's for that. And also, for the purchase of a maintenance shop truck. Martin equipment drives and their dated, material, truck, and we can place an engine on it, and, so these funds come out and identified in the ARP, and, with that, Mr. Richard, could you explain the costs?
Sure. The 2 we're looking at replacing, of course, we have one on each truck. One of them was bought in 2007, the other in 2008. So they're 15, 14, 15 years old. And they held up well. So they've seen their lifespan. And they made some updates to these as we purchased those. The last one we bought, they have now what they call expanded patient service. So in other words, the rails that we put up beside the patients, if that particular patient needs it, they adjust outward, where we can actually raise the side rails. And like I said, we've had them 15, 14 years old. They've been good. Offered to give us 5,000 for the 2 trade-in towards purchasing 2, but we didn't cut that.
These costs are inspected annually, and have to be some, or I think they have, and so we need to, have that plan to upgrade our equipment on that.
So if I understand it correctly, we're making a request to transfer from ARP funds to the general fund a total of $80,660.56.
For 2 cots.
For 2 cots at $32,014.56 apiece, and 1 GSC Sierra at $47,250 for the maintenance shop.
Yes, Yes.
All right. I'll make a motion that we amend the budget and transfer the funds from ARP to the general fund.
Second.
We have a motion, second. Discussion.
Did we get 3 bids on these? I didn't see any bids in our packet.
These are proprietary. In other words, the Striker company is the only one that you can buy them from, and that's the ones we've had. They held up good, they started some corners, and we had a good day here. And I estimate they've lifted at least 20,000 people per stretcher. And that's all in all. They've held up good.
How about the maintenance bid?
That, I have.
Right.
The truck out there, we called it and selected other people, but this is a local vendor, this local car dealership up there, but, you know, with the issues with getting vehicles up there, these people had one, and delivering up there, there was a time and fashion up there. Did check with those availability, don't have any availability, this particular kind up there, so, you know, I don't have 3 bids coming out front of you, but, you know, with conditions of trucks and vehicles and access and availability of the vehicles up there, we got 1 bid, officially, and, from this,
So nobody else would bid on
they'll bid on it, it's just acceptability, I mean, we can, you know, go back and get one, but I mean, it's not gonna be sudden.
it? Aren't we required to do that for ARP money?
We went out and checked on it, it's kind of like the other vehicles over there, getting access to vehicles, but we can table that. I mean, I can go back, I don't,
I think what you're gonna come up with when you do that is you're gonna have, for example, a refund or a, thing that can say, here's the cost of the vehicle.
So I think we need to find out that before we just approve one. I mean, I agree with shopping local, but we still need to, entertain that avenue for getting bids like the proper procedure. I mean, we do it on everything else.
right, we did check with them, we did get them there, but don't have official quote to show you on that, and we can go back to that. And this comes, it's not an emergency to go get this thing, but there's a need out there, so we'll go back and see what.
Can we just replace the motor in the one we have, correct?
About 6 months ago, yeah.
Right.
Last year.
So we should be good for.
I mean, we'd be good for a while, but it needs to be updated. We have ARP funds available, and we have a time limit to execute those funds as well. But we'll go back and get the quotes, and that's our board. Yes.
Well, I'm glad to tell you, I will amend my motion to state that we do move forward with Scott's purchasing costs, transfer of those funds. And it would table GMC Sierra until this time, Mr. Jefferson can get 2 additional bids for that. So, motion amended. Any more discussion? Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Key? Yes. Commissioner Hires?
Yes.
Commissioner McCrary?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Thank you, Richard. Item D, for new business, consider approving agreement between Wayne County Transit and the Ware County Board of Health Wellness Program.
Mr. Chairman, this is an annual renewal with the Ware County Board of Health for transfer and access and moving patients to different facilities around the region. This contract we've had for several years. It's asking we get compensation, $20 per person per round. You know, it's something that is needed and is utilized, and, it continues to manage contract.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve contract.
I'll second. So, motion is second. Discussion.
Was there any other changes at all, because we didn't get the previous one, we just get the current one. Other than the dates, any changes?
No other changes, anything other than that. That's it. And, you know, this is, you know, again, there shouldn't have been any changes, we would call out.
So there's not, or there
Not-
shouldn't have been? Okay.
Commissioner Myers,
Yes.
Commissioner Perry,
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Key.
Yes.
Item E, under new business, consider approving changing of the July 4th meeting date.
It does, if you like more funds on the budget, and, you know, just come off holidays, make it holiday, and, you know, first session, and maybe move it to the 11th. That's suitable for y'all. That's the following Monday.
I'm good with that. I won't be available. I'm good with any other time during the week before. So. Yeah.
I don't think I'll be here. I think that's, I can get back with you, but I think that's when we have church camp.
The 11th?
Yeah, I think that's when it starts. I'm not positive. I can find out before the end of the meeting. If you want to postpone it until then, I can
You go that whole week?
yes. Yeah, but now, any day before that, I mean, any of the other days after the 4th, I'm good with that week. Let me, can I do that? Can I text and find out?
You possibly do a virtual, and you call in, how you want to do it. We can move that out.
Okay.
If we.
I might got another year in Chicago, Illinois, but I can tell you.
Any other commissions from the council?
Yeah, that probably,
You're only elected, call it.
You can have, how many, two?
So I have 3 here, so 2.
Right. I'm good with that. I mean, I should know right here in a minute if that day will work. Okay. Yeah, I'm good with the LF.
All right, then, I'll make a motion that we move the July meeting from July 4th to July 11th.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
second.
Second.
Discussion. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner McCrary,
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Key, Commissioner Hires.
Yes. All right. Item F, consider approving amending the travel reimbursement policy.
Mr. Chairman, you know, as y'all aware, we had an RS audit over there and found that we were not correct in several things that occurred in travel, and compensation associated with travel. And so part of that is to change the policy. And to that point, we updated the policy to reflect the federal reimbursement allowances for miles. And things currently fit. Also, overnight stay meals for reimbursement are not eligible unless there's overnight stay by IRS rules and regulations. So we'll change that.
The tax, bill tax.
And that's pretty standard there, but yes, we do not pay taxes as county employees. While you're functioning as a county employee, don't do an official role of the county employee. So, huh?
Meal breakdown.
That is right down with that. That's, you know, that's just a clarification. The basic issue is there. And then the other issue is, there's some that, personnel, department heads that have vehicles, and it's advantageous if they take them home for the county standpoint. However, to the work, personal use is considered, company reimbursement or expenses, and is referred to as taxable. And that we're going to adjust the wages of those individuals that are require emergency vehicles for deputies or whatever are exempt from that. And other emergency people, EMS, they use their vehicles and it's labeled as such, and, you know, it's equipped as such. You know, but any other vehicles of their, that are taken home of their, the compensation will be added to the employees, W-2, based on mileage and to and from, home. And that will be estimated, from where that individual lives. And any other personal use items, but we will not use vehicles on personal items, personal use, they're only coming back into work. It's advantageous for an employee to be in a department head to take a vehicle home. That compensation or that use going back into work is considered personal use by the IRS. So we got compensation.
All right, so this item is to amend the travel reimbursement policy to mirror requirements of the IRS.
That's exactly right. And update the reimbursement thing, which is an IRS. They go by that as well. So yes.
So this is, you want to talk about it now? So this is going like, I'm gonna use an example, Mr. Evans. So they will not be able to take their vehicles home, I mean, a county vehicle, or they will?
They will.
They will.
Okay.
But if we deem them as a county, using Mr. Elton as an example over there, it's advantageous for him to have that vehicle ready to go, right?
Right.
So, but the IRS considers if he leaves his house and goes to the shop over there, that's personal time. And that's personal use over there. So what we have to do is add the mileage and estimate what it needs to do, keep a log of that and say, you know, it will be reflected on the W-2 as wages, that we will have to be, we will have to pay tax on as well.
So in this, we'll need to look at modifying the income of the individual.
The income will be modified based on The
offset that.
That's right, and so
So
we'll have to
that
pay
puts-
part of that unemployment, they'll have to pay part of that unemployment. It won't be cash compensation, but it will be in-kind cash compensation for what's going there. It will be a part of their income. And that's how that, but you're right, Mr. Elton will, use that vehicle and whatever mileage going back to shop, will be added up, and compensated. Added to the budget too.
So to answer your question, yes, the county employees will be able to still take those vehicles home that are necessary,
That are necessary.
but they'll be taxed. Basically, they'll be taxed for the use of that vehicle, and we will modify their salaries.
Will compensate.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Okay.
All right, make a motion that we accept the amendments of the travel reimbursement.
I'll second
Motion second, any more discussion? Thank you, Mark.
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Key. Yes. Commissioner Hires,
Yes.
Commissioner Perry.
it. Yes.
Item G, consider approving the RV park off of Old Dr. Trail Road.
Mr. Griffiths, could you come and talk about this, RV park?
Our ordinance calls for each RV to have 40 by 60, and the square footage of the 4 of those is a little more than 1 lot. She's got 2 lots that she's gonna put 4 RVs on, and she's got 2 more lots she wants to put 4 more on. We drew out designs of how they would park them and how they would access them in and out, and they're included in the paperwork. I think everybody got a copy of it.
This is where, Dr. Taylor, Old Dr. Taylor Road.
That particular one's off of Old Doctor Town.
Yeah.
And it's,
Does she meet county orders requirements? Based on those layouts, does she meet county orders requirements based on those layouts?
we stopped construction because, waiting on approval, but she has electricity sitting there and septic tank sitting there. But she hasn't gravelled any of her spots and actually taken water and sewer and all to each one of the little parking spots. We're gonna be using it for people coming in, working shut-ins and stuff like that. Most of the traffic on the Old Doctor Dam will be coming straight off the bid. The other one will actually work as a drive-through. There's a road on both sides of it. They can pull straight in and come out the other side. There's a dirt road on both sides of it. So it's easy to get to, easy to come in, easy to get out. She'll finish all her gravel and then I'll have to do another inspection at that time. But so far she's, met the design and the criteria that she needs. And once she gets the water and sewer to the sites, then we'll follow up and we'll give her an okay to the actual cost bringing the lot.
All right, based on this, your recommendation, that we accept, and I'll make a motion that we approve the RV park off Old Dr. Road known as Deerwood Manor.
It's Deerwood Manor.
Deerwood Manor. Okay. Make a motion, we accept.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Key. Yes. Commissioner Hires,
Yes.
Commissioner Perry.
Yes.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. Item H, consider approving the rental agreement with Title and Hub. Is this a referring?
Yes, this is the name of thing, this is for the building that is located on 84 South, that was built 5 years ago. And it's about, especially in the, mental health in the county and country right now, but it is an annual renewal of the rental agreement.
Is motion on the street?
Yeah, I'll just approve the, and the original agreement, consideration for providing office space. Signing that, we will be able to do that, for utilities.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second. Any discussion?
With the, inflation, is that $500 gonna cover utilities for that $10,000?
I think
Or
utilities
10,000
are-
square foot building?
I think utilities are fine, we need to probably look at it next year and see whether we need to go up, the current rates up there, you know, there's no fuel cost in there, and other aspects of it, I think, you know, it's not really talking about that.
It's one of our newer buildings, so it was built more, energy efficient. Some of the older ones we had to maintain. Oh, yeah, I had 2 years ago. So it's great. Madam Clerk?
Ms. Wood? Yes. Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Commissioner Perry?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Item A, consider approving amending the parallel taxiway contract.
Mr. Chairman, this is associated with the work that's been completed up there, it was overrun. Explanation from the stuff in, I think, in Palaca right now, we couldn't make it back, he was trying to, but, you know, it's within the budget. The contract we met, the Sykes Company, for $346,000. Final amount was $396,64, and overrun $47,000. All but about 50 grand of that to make sure that we had those numbers correct, that they've been paid. Sykes Company, we owe them that money, and we just need to come to y'all and get approval to spend it there. Now, we get 90% reimbursement from the state on this thing, so actual cost to the county is $4,715.17. So, the engineer is here, that oversaw that, if you have any questions, so, he can deal with it for you. But we do owe that money.
Good evening, my name is Brad Wintown with Passel and Associates, and we were part of the original design, bid, and construction. The project was originally the full parallel taxiway, earthworks, paving, the whole thing. We bid the project thinking that GDOT and FAA would come up with the money to build the entire element. We only had money to do the earthwork, which is, so we value engineered that. Mr. Jeffers indicated sites, others didn't work. We ended up needing more offsite borrows, which was a higher unit rate than an onsite borrow, and that's what reflects the change. They've done the work, it was done according to the technical specifications. We're recommending approval for $47,151.75. And as Mr. Jeffers said, 90% of that is reimbursement from the FAA and everyone else, so the county's true cost is about $4,700.
All right. Thank you. All right, it's my recommendation that we accept 47,000. We'll keep 175 and then second that the state will reimburse us for that each year. Which also can be helpful prices for this part, which also said $1,000. Second motion, Mr. Chairman. Discussion.
So you said it came in under budget?
Within the budget.
You said it came within the budget?
Yes, that's
It's over
part of the
budget.
county budget, yes, sir. I thought you were talking about referring to the contract, but, it's within the budget, yes.
So,
The bid was less than the budget.
And we just want to come back to y'all, and the contract got amended, and so we're asking for that check.
I'm just trying to find, don't you normally ask for this before you spend the money?
It was after the fact of their district, and, the due diligence and, it was found over there and what, so the work was done, and cost of it came up there.
It didn't come to the county's attention until after the dirt had been hauled in and passed by inspection.
Well, so it should be the county's fault. County shouldn't be liable for that. If the contractor decides to spend that money on it out of his own pocket without asking for it, the county should not be held responsible for that 47. And I do realize that, the next FAA grant that we apply for, when is that? You said that we'll get reimbursed for 90%, correct? Okay, so then it wouldn't cost the county but $4,700. But to that point, we're gonna have to pay 47 now until that grant comes, and when will that grant come
The
through?
grant's already approved. The reimbursement, as soon as we spend the money, and we put in the paperwork, it'll come back.
Well, I'm reading what you said, and it says, I recommend the county pay the overrun, and we will apply for the 90% reimbursement in the next FAA airport improvement grant.
Yes, and that'll be,
That's not an issue, that's the airport manager.
and the money will be coming, and, it will be reimbursed over there, and I think that grant will be applied for in the fall.
Yeah, may I jump in real
Yes,
quick?
please.
So this is you're absolutely spot on with Sykes Brothers, Pass Road. This came up in the application too regarding the work. We've been working, so it's June now, so the work was done basically in December. That's what the delay was, going back and forth, survey validation, what happened, why are we going over? But we've done the work, here we are, we've got the issue, GDOT's aware of it. We're trying to amend the grant to lessen the $47,000 outlay by the county. Very sensitive to that, and certainly I don't like to be here as a representative of my company coming for you, so I apologize to the commission for this, coming in after the fact and what we've done. But we try to be fair to the contracting community, they did do the work in good faith, and so we're asking for a leeway this evening. In regard to the reimbursement, it's June, we normally get those in August or September for the FAA season. We've already talked to Jeff Griffin, who's the Georgia Department of Transportation Program Manager, and he's already put that in for reimbursement. So that's kind of where we are in the process, sir.
That's your question. We anticipate it in August, September, that time frame.
So that would be before our taxes come in, so that can possibly. Yeah. Yeah, this seems to be a habit with all contracts. Do Wayne County how you want to, and I just don't think it's right. I think it should become, you have a limit on what you can approve, correct? Well, we set the budget, and we set that budget based on the numbers that we get. I understand you have a run-up, but I think these things should come before the commission before. And if you don't give them this money, maybe let them wait until we get the next FAA grant and see if it'll come through. I don't wanna make anybody mad, but we got 30,000 people that live here, and they pay taxes, not all of them, some of them are kids, but we pay taxes, and we expect to be frugal with our money, and I'm sure your company does the same thing.
That was discussed about doing, application up to the established contract amount, and when the additional FAA monies came in, at that time, Sykes Brothers would be, pay the difference. So, that's a decision for you guys to make. I'm just here to get the approvals and process and so forth, so.
We can wait for reimbursement, for another grant to pay the bill there, but, it's up to y'all. I don't think that $47,000 is gonna, dramatically impact us from that standpoint. Taxes coming in, but it's up to y'all. If you want to delay, you'll get reimbursement, then so be it.
It's just a principle. That's all I'm saying.
And if it happens on a regular basis, we probably need to put something in the contract.
Oh, Commissioner, I don't think it happens on a regular basis up there. This is something that came up up there. The earthwork up there was not suitable, and
Admittedly, with earthwork operations, it's harder to know exactly where you are in the process until you do a validation survey. So that's really what the crux of the matter is. You can't go out and necessarily measure the concrete pipe or some dimension for like get asphalt tickets. It's not, it's a little more nuanced and we didn't know until we actually got the gas going. So
We're talking about dirt,
we're talking about dirt work. It's all
yeah,
dirt work.
cubic yards of dirt.
Cubic yards.
Yes, they can repeat.
That's exactly what the quantity is.
Right.
So,
Commissioner,
that's the way.
I'm gonna make a motion that we pay this overage and ask for approval. You know, you are more than welcome to turn around and make a motion that the payment be delayed until after the reimbursement is right.
Yeah.
Right, any more discussion? We got something on that?
You
Yes.
got a second.
Commissioner Thomas? Yes. Commissioner Hires?
Yes.
Commissioner McCrary?
No.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Key? Yes.
So I'd like to make, can I go ahead and make my motion?
Yes,
That we
sir.
wait, we postpone payment until the reimbursement comes through the FAA, which paid the initial amount anyway. Yes. Yes.
Right, so they've been paid everything but $47,000, right?
$50,000, and I just gave a little leeway to make sure that, you know, those estimates may come in at that cost of it, and when I was paid, so. But we wait, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
No second? Motion passed, like I said. Item J, consider approving nominees for the board of registrar. Got two choices here. I'll put it before the board. One is that the commissioners can recommend 6 names based on involvement with elections previously to the grand jury. For the grand jury to choose 3 names to forward to a Superior Court judge for the selection of the chief registrar. Current chief registrar's term is up, and we have been given 6 names through reaching out to numerous parties that do the elections. So our choice is we can choose the chief registrar and the other 2 registrar board members, or we got 3, we can choose 6 instead of the grand jury. I've just learned of tonight of the option of us going ahead and choosing the chief registrar and the board of registrar. So rather than keep it on down or the grand jury, I'm gonna make a motion that we go ahead tonight and choose based on the names given us by the election superintendent of the court, who will show the members of the elections. We'll go ahead and decide this and don't burn the grand jury. If within 90 days of the end of the term, 90 or 30 days.
Jones Power to, it's within 9 days of the end of the term, the end of the appointments currently are June the 30th, so we're within that 9-day period, but within 90 days of the end of the term, the governing authority of the county can submit the name, so they can choose the name that sits on your board of registrars. Currently, there's 3 members on the current board of registrars, one being a chief registrar.
Would they need to serve the remainder of the term?
No, their term doesn't start until July 1, so they have a 4-year term starting July 1. The current 4-year term, and I believe you have Ms. Nash, who is the chief registrar currently. You have Ms. Jackie Wright, and I believe Mr. Denzo Thomas are your 3 current members of your board of registrars. Their term ends on June the 30th. So y'all select 3 names tonight to appoint to that board. Their terms will begin July 1. Of course, we'd have to certify them. It'd have to be certified to the Secretary of State's office and the Clerk of the Court's office. They would serve 4-year terms.
Where did the names come from?
I think their names of current poll workers.
Poll workers, folks that the company election superintendent, and those names are on people that are permanently involved in the election. Where poll workers are current board members. So, my motion now is for the board of commissioners to go ahead and decide on the registrar and the board of registrars, in lieu of providing the names to the treasurer. If that is not the board's choice, then we simply will be a second, or then we'll vote it down, and then we'll move on to the motion of the 6 names sent to the grand jury, provided from the same source that grand jury chooses.
For those provided in writing.
Yes.
So we can go on and select the hearing. I second the motion, that I do the election.
Again, this is to do the decisions, and I'll turn around and make a motion with the names after we choose whether we do it or not. So the motion and the second to choose, for the board of commissioners to choose the registrar, chief registrar, and the registrar. Any discussion on it?
Yeah, I realize these were names given to you by people who are, have a lot to do with the election. Why wouldn't we be given those names so we can look at them and make a decision? I mean,
You can't, I wanna decide whether we're gonna do the 3 names tonight, and that will be the board of registrar, the board of registrar. Or whether we're gonna do 6 names to the grand jury. You can see the name, it's not a problem.
no, I'm just saying, so the board of registrar, so are we talking about the chief registrar?
The chief registrar and the 2 registrar board members.
Did we develop criteria for these people? Yes.
So are we changing the order or is it staying the same?
The majority of the board will stay the same under the recommendation I made. The chief registrar will not.
And the chief registrar is directly under.
The chief registrar.
Yeah, the chief registrar is appointed typically what the code section allows, Chairman Hires election vote, but typically what the code section allows is that the grand jury makes recommendations. Those names have to come from somewhere. Typically, the last time that I was a part of this election, the grand jury recommends the names that were given to them. They recommended, I believe, 6 names, and your chief judge, which is Judge Scarlett, was Judge Scarlett back then, of the judicial circuit, ordered that 3 of those names serve on your board of registrars, with the chief registrar being Susan Nash, and she was appointed for the term again, I believe it was, I'm not looking right at the order right now, but I believe it started July the 1st of 2018, and it goes to June the 30th of 2020. And you can still follow that. I think what Chairman Hires is trying to say is you can still follow that format if you want to. What the code section allows though, since we're within 90 days of that June 30th term ending, so you don't have an overlap there, the code section basically allows that the board of commissioners can select 3 names and appoint a chief registrar. And so I think these names were ones that Chairman Hires got from different different affiliations with poll workers in consultation with Mr. Jeffers, with election superintendent, numerous names. So I think he got a list of 6 names, if I'm understanding it right, that y'all can pick 3, we can send those to the grand jury and have them recommend them to the Superior Court judge, and him pick 3 of them, however y'all want to kind of handle that. Does that make sense?
I mean, I see how you're trying to separate it out, but I'm just looking at, the only one we're really replacing is Ms. Nash. Is that what the only position that will change?
And she would remain a county employee as a deputy registrar, but she would not be the chief registrar, which is a part-time job.
So, I'm trying to think, is there, I thought this would be handled in executive session if we had a problem with an employee.
Well, this doesn't involve personnel. This is an appointed position. The chief registrar.
But she is an employee.
She is an employee, but the chief registrar's appointment itself is not an employee. The chief registrar only gets a $247, if I'm going off memory, $247 a month stipend that the state is statutorily required. It is not a full-time position such as the administrator of Wayne County or the clerk of Wayne County or any other, tax commissioner, anybody that works within full-time sheriff. It is not a full-time position. The designation of chief registrar is just an appointed position. And that appointment either comes from your Superior Court judge, or in this instance, it could come from the Board of Commissioners. So in this instance, it's not personnel. She would remain an employee with Wayne County. I believe Chairman Powers' recommendation, if I'm kind of reading between the lines here, that his recommendation is not to reappoint her to as the chief registrar on the board of registrars, but she would remain within the registrar's office as a chief or assistant deputy registrar in the registrar's office. But the board of registrars is a separate entity that looks over and kind of governs the office or the registrar's office. She just wouldn't sit on the board as the chief registrar. If I'm understanding kind of where his recommendation of names is coming from. I mean, again, it's not limited to 6 names. I think, from what I understood talking to Chairman earlier about some of the things on the agenda, he had got names from talking to different people, and that was kind of names that was given to me. But you're not limited to those 6 names. Or 3 names. I mean, you're limited to only 3 appointments, but not just those.
I mean, with all we've been going through here in the last few years, I'm just trying to find if there's a justification for the demotion from the chief registrar.
It's not a demotion from chief registrar.
Sure it is.
No, it's not. It's simply not a reappointment.
If you go from chief to deputy, that would be, is there any decrease in salary?
Typically, your chief registrar was not a full-time position. It was never intended or meant to be a full-time position. The way that I understand that kind of came about a little bit was that you do have a deputy registrar who is supposed to be a full-time position. It's a county-paid employee, protected by the employee handbook position that you have. However, the designation of chief registrar is just an appointment, and it's paid statutorily $247 a month. Okay, so there's a distinction between a deputy registrar and a chief. That's kind of your distinction between a deputy registrar and a chief registrar. Your chief registrar kind of serves as your chairman of your board of registrars, that now consists of 3 people. That has, as far as I know, since the creation of the board of registrars in Wayne County, it's only consisted of 3 positions. So again, those are kind of appointed by the Superior Court judge. Now, again, the way my understanding of how this kind of mushroomed to where we're at now is that prior to Ms. Nash being the chief registrar, she was the deputy registrar. And prior to her, the chief registrar that was in that position did not have she had served prior to being appointed chief deputy, or prior to being appointed the chief registrar, she was the deputy registrar. And she never, and the county agreed to not hire a deputy registrar because she served in that position as kind of a dual capacity as the chief registrar. She just didn't have a deputy registrar. So when our last chief registrar resigned, or her appointment ended, or she retired, whichever way you want to call it, Ms. Nash took over her position as the deputy registrar, which she was at before. She became the chief registrar and the deputy, and kind of, she still kept her title as the deputy registrar, but she was also the chief registrar on the board of registrars and started receiving $247 a month stipend. Well, for some reason or another, and I believe this was before Mr. Jefferson, if I understand it right, I believe it was the last administrator, Mr. Smart, filled even though it was never a position, because Ms. Nash should have just been, there should not have been a vacant assistant position there. He filled that position with the deputy registrar. So now you have two full-time positions in that, which was never really meant to have two full-time positions. It was meant to have a deputy registrar, and then again, chief registrar is not a full-time position. So that's kind of where we're at now, is that if I'm understanding the recommendation right, or the accommodation right, you still retain the two registrars there. Ms. Nash wouldn't be losing her position as a county employee, or any pay, or dividends, or bonuses, or leave time, or any employee benefits there. Except for a $247 a month stipend that she receives from her appointment as the chief registrar. Does that make sense?
Kind of, it just sounds like it's backwards to me. It sounds like the deputy registrar would be put in place so that they could learn the role and the state laws and things like that for the chief registrar, and then you would move up into that position until you retire.
Well, I think Mr. Smart was kind of quasi along those lines of doing that when that position was, because again, when our last chief registrar was in there, she was running the entire office by herself. Because she had been the chief deputy, or she'd been the deputy registrar, and then she got the appointment as chief registrar, so she continued her full-time employment as the deputy registrar, while also coincidentally serving, or simultaneously serving as the chief registrar. Well, I believe that was kind of the intent, and I'm going back trying to speculate a little bit, so I'm not real clear on everything, but it's my understanding that when her tenure as a county employee, her retirement was coming up, that Ms. Nash was kind of put in that role as a deputy registrar to kind of take that over. Where, in my opinion, the mishap, or what was supposed to happen was when Ms. Nash was named chief registrar. You know, there shouldn't have been anybody hired in that position as a deputy registrar to fill her vacating that position and become the chief registrar alone. So that's where you kind of have the overlay there. So now it will be two, again, I believe what Chairman Howard's recommendation is that a name be appointed as the chief registrar, and you retain the two employees that you currently have over there working now in the registrar office.
Okay, so we can make a motion to keep her as chief registrar, and then use the other names as the deputy.
That's not like my motion, really. My motion that's on the table right now is where we decide who the chief registrar is and the two board registrar members, or we let the regular decide. That's the motion that's on the table right now.
I feel like we made a mistake, bringing her name into this. If we should be focusing on the actual structure of how it needs to be set up, and that the county administrator, would determine the personnel issues, not us, and that,
As a deputy registrar,
Right.
also personnel,
Right.
fall under that.
Exactly.
As a chief,
registrar is a one position, and as Mr. Beagle explained, that should not fall under, it's a supported position, as it has.
So we're only talking about $250
a month.
a month.
And Mr. Jeffers has no control over her as the chief registrar. She, from that point, the only person that can reverse the appointment would be a superior court.
It may even be a conflict for a person that is active.
Let me intercept you. I'm going to rescind the motion for us to make the decision, or the director to make the decision. I will rescind it, and I will make a motion that we table this to this meeting. Discuss it at the July meeting. And go into executive session. All right. So my motion is rescinded. And now I will make a motion that we table the issues on the chief registrar, or board registrar, until the July 11th meeting. We will go to executive session. And the current chief registrar, whose term is up, I think, the 30th of June, we will not have a chief registrar. She can operate as her position as a deputy registrar, which is a full-time job. All right, motion. Can I have a second? Second. I have a motion to second, table this item until July. All right.
Can you give us those names so we can look at them?
I'll just actually. We'll go back up. Yep, sure. Item K, consider approved contract. We got a motion to table the overall.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Keith?
Yes.
Commissioner Hires?
Yes.
Commissioner McCreary?
Yes.
Now, item K, consider approved contract.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Schuman, you mind coming up and talking about that? We went out to bid, Portage Road was on the SPOS list, and we've been working on that. Y'all approved it some time back. The engineers have phased it, now we got the construction phase and install of it here. We're asking for approval of that particular bid, last week, this was not paving all of this road, just a reminder, it's about a mile worth of road, it's not,
It's just short of Nebraska Road.
it's just short of Nebraska Road, so, from that standpoint of there, we're asking for approval of that, we'll explain details.
Yeah, as the county administrator said, we only got 2 bids when we bid the project. One little field construction is the low bidder, $577,455.60. The Scruggs Company was the second bidder, $720,392.45. We have a recommendation to proceed to the construction company. That's $577,455.60.
All right, so that's your recommendations.
This is SPOS code too, Mr. Chairman. It's on the SPOS list.
Long time coming. I'll make that motion that we accept the Louisville construction bid for the Orchard Road. Marshall Plan. Second. Motion is second, discussion. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Keith?
Yes.
Commissioner Hires?
Yes.
Commissioner McCreary?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners.
All right, item L, consider approving minutes for backhoe 2011.
Mr. Essenwall, as part of, our activity in updating our equipment in the road department, the road department and requested that we are back in. I probably had a loader, backhoe, and they also went out to bids on that, and I'll let them explain what the SPOS money again.
Thank you, I've got a copy of that. I did solicit bids, went through detailed bids, setting up, set bids, which should allow, these vendors to meet our requirements. and, I went out and get 2 bids back, $103,651.33 from Flint for John Deere, and $138,185 from Yancey Brothers. The Flint bids did not meet the requirements that we set forth. So based on that, and the statement that we make, that we select based on qualifications met, time delivery, and so forth, I recommend $138,185. Again, the Flint equipment did not meet the requirements.
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept the bid.
I'll say that.
Motion second, accept the bid for Yancey Brothers. Discussion.
Flint was given a spec sheet on what we were looking for.
Yes, sir. Actually, to give you some detail of what I did, we have a machine out here that we're looking at replacing. And I contacted both of these vendors and said, we're looking at replacing this machine. Please send me a copy of specifications that you've got that will meet this. Flint sent me a list of specifications for a 310 SL. And when the bid came in, the bid was for a 310L. It did not meet the requirements of the piece of equipment we had discussed initially. So,
And you talked, did you
and
tell
I
them?
talked back with him, and he said I got on the wrong line, and it's messed up.
So how bad are we in need of does he have the other machine, Flint?
No,
They don't have it
didn't have
available?
either one of them. His delivery date was out in January on the one that he quoted, Nancy Brothers, the Caterpillars, October 5th. And, of course, if we, you could consider rebidding, but if you rebid, then Caterpillar doesn't have a fair opportunity because their numbers are already out. So a lot of things to consider, but that's my recommendation based on the qualifications we set forth when we get this.
And I have to agree with Mr. Askew. We do a lot of business with both of these companies, and they're both outstanding companies, outstanding to work with. The problem is, number one, like Ms. Milton said, we go back and say, okay, you can go back and relook at this with the proper piece of equipment. And
They already know the final numbers.
that's right. And the other thing is, it gives a tainted image of our integrity and how we operate the bid process.
That would be my biggest concern.
Yeah.
I think that.
I agree.
In this situation, I hate it, it's a mistake, we make some mistakes as contractors, and we do. A situation like this, it costs you a job. So, that motion is second, more discussion. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Key? Yes. Commissioner Hires?
Yes.
Commissioner Terry?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Shelton. Colin, thank you for being up. I hate to turn out like this. We're maintaining the integrity of this process, I think. All right. Under appointments, we have the tax board appointment for District 4. Mr. Jones currently, our term currently ends 6/30/2022.
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna reappoint Terry Thomas.
I'll say that. Any discussion?
Commissioner Hires?
Yes.
Commissioner Terry?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Key? Yes.
Item B on the tax board, District 5, we currently have Mr. Martin Fisher serving or expiring 6/30/2022. Madam Key.
I'm going to reappoint one Mitchell.
Also second that. Discussion. Madam Clerk.
Commissioner McCreary?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Key? Yes. Commissioner Hires?
Yes. Item C, Hospital Authority District 1, currently Mr. Herman Lewis Jr. serves. understand Mr. Lewis is doing an exceptional job with the hospital authority. I've had quite a bit of conversation with him about things they do. In reappointment, I have to nominate Mr. Lewis, but I also have to match with names for nominations for the hospital authority to choose from the three. So I'm going to nominate Mr. Lewis and Drew Thorne. And Ray. So I'm going to make a motion that those nominations be accepted.
I second, Mr. Chairman.
Make a motion to second discussion.
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Key? Yes. Commissioner Hires?
Yes.
Commissioner Perry?
Yes.
Item E, hospital authority district two, Drew.
I'm in the same situation. We have to provide three names. Miss Brenda has done a phenomenal job. I've spoken to several people and they agree that she needs to stay on, but I'm also going to give two more names. So I make a motion that we accept these names. Miss Brenda Purvis, Harry Thompson, and Paul McDuffie.
I second.
2 seconds for that. Not a quick check. Motion to second discussion.
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Key? Yes. Commissioner Hires?
Yes.
Commissioner Perry?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just figuring out to get the information on this person. Sure. All right. We'll have amendments to the agenda. I don't think what was out of it. Sure.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. The only other thing I have here is I reached out to y'all about the work session and talked to some dates over there and trying to get everybody's schedule on there. And y'all accepted the 21st. However, there's other people that had a conflict with that. So reach out if there that week, Thursday and Friday, the 23rd and 24th over there, it's available. I'd like to have a work session those 2 days. 23rd and 24th, acceptable, not to cross that bridge with you guys on this.
This one?
That's June, that's big. You know, the previous days were Monday, Tuesday, this will be Thursday.
8 to 12, still. 8 to 12.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm good.
Yeah, that's fine.
And I'll reach out to Commissioner Roberts and verify that. But thank you.
If there's a conflict that you don't mind, just reach out. Mr. Jacobs. Otherwise, we'll say 23rd, 24th. All right. Commissioner Perry, House of Commissioners.
I would like to, I know we had talked about a sidearm mower with the ARP money. Have we looked into that through any, getting bids for those? Because I know we've had a lot of downtime.
We got some, we'll get some bids on that. No, sir, I haven't received any bids for that, but we can get those equipment. It was based on their needs and their recommendations, and, you know, at the time, that code was the most important one. We do have, both trims, they're active. We got one that's down, our spare, but, you know, when we go get that, we'll figure out how to go do it. We'll bring it back to you. So we'll get the specifications out and meet our specs over there and go forward.
Lake Gray Stream Valve. I know I brought this up a bunch of times, but, nothing's been done. I think a little bit has been done, some sandbags or something like that, but what I'd like to know is who's gonna decide what
minimum level before we shut the lake down. I've had several people call me with damaged props and things like that due to the level getting so low. And I'm gonna have to reach out to Department of DNR and come up with an estimated level there. That's not, and we're reaching out from the safe dam standpoint. Now, let me speak about the sandbags. And we tried that, water flow still through there. But we cut the water flow out of that pipe, probably 70%. And we verified that by putting a ruler down there before we did anything, and then put the ruler down there at the pipe and see where the water came up there. So we think we got cut about 70%, and we're still gonna try to do some more. But, you know, that long, when it needs to be set down, is something that we need to evaluate more. We also, we're looking at, safe dam people bringing in some experts, to try to figure out who the experts are, and figure out the best way to replace that valve. But it is zeroed in, and we gotta be able to call from down around that, and it's pretty expensive. So before we bring it to y'all, we want to make sure we've done we covered up everything and make sure that this is the right path forward. There's not another solution for it. So, you know, I think that the sandbags have worked, and we're still gonna try some more aspects of reducing it further, but we've impacted the flow by 70%. Based on your recommendations or your requirement, we will reach out and figure out what is the minimum flow or minimum level before activities are ceased. Didn't we vote on a bladder to go in there? I think you made the motion. The bladder didn't work. We couldn't make it work over there, and essentially sandbags or bladder or stopper from that standpoint. So
the difference is the bladder had to be monitored constantly. The sandbags, we put sandbags in, bad.
Save money from the bladder. Have they thought, remember you and I discussed about putting, so to speak, bladder on the inlet side?
Like a sheet, a metal sheet up there.
No, not a metal sheet, rubber.
A rubber.
Yes, it's a rubber over the end, and then I believe, the pressure is a pound per foot of depth in the water, and I think it's about 12 feet. So you'd have 12 pounds of pressure on that pushing in to prevent. I mean, have we tried that?
Essentially, the rubber is that we use the sandbags with the mesh around the sand to do similar. It's the same principle. It's a stopper that goes up against the valve on the end. And we reduce that. Now, we're looking at putting the mesh silk cover on top of that and using like a rubber sheet going in there and reduce the flow further. We're continuing to work to see if we can reduce that flow further to the similar method that we had talked about earlier. Yes.
So those will have to be dug out before you can fix
We
them.
have a retainer cable on them and we can pull them up.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, in any other thing, we'll have a retainer cable over there and then tied to the valve. I think it's still tied to the valve up there, so.
Wouldn't it be better to put bags of gumbo?
Put sand in there because they tend to
mesh,
flowable to some degree.
Right.
And the material that we put in there, the sandbags are made out of, it's a porous material. You can get some water flow. You'd never get a full shut off. But we went from like an 8-inch opening flowing out of that pipe down to 2.5 inches. And that flow coming out. That 2.5 inches is in that lower part of the pipe. So I think probably 70% might be, we might have been better than 70%. We made a big change in it. Do we intend to try to take another piece of mesh and cover over that? Put sandbags in, when they're laying there together, you've got voids in between where they join up at. That's where your water's going now. So we've got a piece of fabric we're trying to put together to lay over those sandbags and see if we might decrease that.
And so we don't have a time frame on when we're going to be able to stop that water from draining. I don't have time of completely stopping and fixing the problem completely, but doing the best of them, probably within the next 2 or 3 weeks, we're gonna see what we can reduce the flow each month.
Can we even legally shut that water off completely because of downstream ecosystem?
I think that it's environmentally over there, prudent to keep some flow going out there, not only for the downstream side of there, but the water quality of the lake. You know, there's a lot of folks who go in that and push that and, you know, they cut that. So, we're gonna try to reduce it more and, the next few weeks after we discuss it. We just got to stand back in, the last one, we put two different applications in there, and that was about 2 or 3 weeks ago. See how it's gonna hold, and we're gonna continue on working on it. Elton and I have talked about it numerous times, and come up with a strategy to see if we can do that. But ultimately, we're looking at some expertise from the state, and who's out there, and bring down up there before we spend it. Talking down, it's gonna be very expensive to illustrate, and that's the only way that I see fixing something. You know, get the valve back to work. So.
That's all I have. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, have anything this time?
I wanted to talk a little bit about some training that I attended last week on property appraisal and taxation, which was real timely since we just had that. And I learned in that meeting that the ratio that the tax assessors use should be in a range of 36 to 40, and that the most recently recorded ratio that we have is 37.11, which is really good. Also, I wanted to ask our county administrator if all of the tax assessors and all of the staff are certified.
I think that we're in the process, or they're in the process of making sure everybody's certified, but, there may be a couple of board members that need to be, that goes to more training. It's an ongoing thing, but I believe most of, maybe a few people have not, gotten certified in appraisal 1, but all of them are on schedule to go through the training and pass the test.
Okay, they just
Most of them are though.
Okay. They just cautioned that, we could be sued if the tax assessors are not certified, and all of the staff as well. I just wondered if we track that.
Yes, they track that, and they get reports from the state, and they're aware of that, so yes, ma'am.
Okay, and, also that when, a business is exempted, that no one can do that except the tax assessor. And, if a business is exempted from taxes, then everybody else has to pay their taxes. So that's one thing that, may be causing our taxes to go up. If we have done that for a lot of businesses, trying to recruit them to come in. The assessment is, of course, it's done every other year, and this year the cost per square foot for a home is $139 a square foot for most things. My mother just sold her a house, and that's what she got. That's up from $100 a square foot. So as a result of that, your property value goes up. The people in your neighborhood's property value goes up, and that affects the taxes. So it's not just the budget that the commissioners approve, it's a lot of other things that affect the taxes. And I just thought it was important for people to understand that. Maybe you did understand that. I didn't. Also, I talked to the sheriff about getting a copy of the safety plan for our community, And I think, if that's the process, one of the trainings that I attended, said that as commissioners, we should have a copy of that, but in talking with the sheriff, the safety plan for the court is under lock and key, so we can't get a copy of that. So,
Madam, you asked if I had a safety plan. I don't have a safety plan written for the public to see. But we do have policies and procedures that deal with active shooters. We have some lesson plans where some of my deputies actually went out to the churches and the banks and spoke to them about ways of handling armed robbery. But as far as a written safety plan, I don't have one. We've got policies and procedures that address this.
I'm concerned about, shootings in Briarwood, and, so the sheriff and I talked about that a little bit, and, I don't know what, kind of action we need to take on that, but I think we need to get some people together talking about, meeting about it, making some plans on how that can be improved. Safety, especially for the neighborhoods that are around Briarwood, that can be affected by that.
And I'd like to say this too, the new mayor and Justin actually, brought to our attention, there was a court order done, well, not long ago, I think it was in 2019, where the court actually came up with some recommendations for the owners of that complex to replace cameras, security fencing, and even a gate in front of it. But there was a limit, a time limit said, of 45 days, and all of those recommendations were made during that time. And he actually set up a meeting with the district attorney, and the district attorney looked at the court order. Because that time had lapsed, those changes wasn't completed, and there wasn't any authority left in the court order to address that. But there's been some discussion about that.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's all I have.
One thing I have is to commend the community and the commissioners, or commissioners that were involved, veterans, in our Memorial Ball. The Memorial Ball Hospital has been getting raised about the way Gary got behind it, and the way the commissioners supported it, and actually involved the veterans, the commissioners, and also the former commissioner, Wright, who's also a veteran, who's very instrumental in promoting the Memorial Walk. I just want to give kudos to Gary for supporting such fine product. It looks good. And having no further business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.